Thank you for tuning in to a special edition of the Court of Public Opinion.
I look in your eyes and I can see you've loved so dangerously. You're not trusting your heart to anyone. You tell me you're gonna play it smart. We're through before we start, but I believe that we've only just begun. When it's this good, there's no saying no. I want you so I'm ready to go. Through the fire, to the limit, to the wall. For a chance to be with you, I'd gladly risk it all. Through the fire, through whatever comes my way. For a chance at loving you, I take it all away. Right down to the wire, even through the fire. I know you're afraid of what you feel. You still need time to heal, and I can help if you'll only let me try. You touched me and something in me knew I could have with you. Now I'm not ready to kiss that dream goodbye. When it's this sweet, there's no saying no. I need you so I'm ready to go. Through the fire, to the limit, to the wall. For a chance to be with you, I'd gladly risk it all. Through the fire, through whatever comes what may. For a chance at loving you, I take it all away. Right down to the wire, even through the fire. Through the test of time. Through the fire, through the limit, to the wall. For the chance to be with you, I'd gladly risk it all. Through the fire, through whatever comes what may. For a chance at loving you, I'd take it all away. Right down to the wire, even through the
Thank you for listening to an edition of the Court of Public Opinion. This program is really, really getting better every day. I see such great improvements, and I'm so happy to see this. First of all, you want to know why the Court of Public Opinion is broadcast like in the middle of the night, because I don't know any of you, but if you've ever gone to night court downtown Pittsburgh, this is an alternative. Not that I would suggest that you avoid going to night court. If you have to go to night court, you have to go to night court, right? But it just seems like the late night hours is when a lot of the problems seem to happen. They always say, like, it seems like once the sun goes down, the problems occur. And if you live in a city, like where we live in the city of Pittsburgh, and one of the most significant things that occur is problems at home. And I don't want to go through a list of things like that because there are situations that we would be here for a while. But, you know, one of the things I was thinking about from the previous post is the House of Pain. And I break these up in segments. I just want to piggyback from just what we were talking about in the House of Pain. Many of you live in an environment where there's problems, you know. Some of them you can live with and some you just cannot stand to live with. It's time to make big changes. And sometimes you don't know how you arrive there, you just do, and you're there. And it's like, okay, you wake up one day and it's all different. And I've had that experience. I don't know if any of you, it's like, this was a game changer. And sometimes you have to fall flat on your face, or you have to hit your own bottom to have that rude awakening. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but thank God for those rude awakenings. That might be the very thing that you needed to wake you up. And sometimes I think it has to be this way, not because you want it, but sometimes it just ends up that way. And you don't necessarily are pointing fingers at anybody, but you can only go so far with certain things. There's only so much you can do. You hit that wall. Have you ever been around somebody that stonewalls you, or they just won't leave you alone, or they have there is no getting around certain things? You know you've hit that plateau, or you've reached that point of no return. Or maybe you've reached a point in that relationship that it's like, we're either going to go this way or we're done. And a lot of times, there are circumstances. I know personally, I hit that wall a couple of times the last couple years. I've hit a wall. Like, I can't go any further than this. I've already done way more than I was supposed to, you know? And any time I went over that line, like when I say set boundaries, once you go over the line, you're like, you might not come out of there okay. You've reached a threshold. Like I said, okay, you cross that line, you reach a threshold, you know you're just going to end up getting hurt. You know that person has not your best interests, or maybe you just don't get along, or maybe you're just bad for each other, but just give each other a break and go your separate ways. And I don't have a problem with that. See, I'm not a big fan of sticking around a home or an environment where I'm not valuable. I'm an asset. Wherever I go, I might be in a wrong job. I might be overqualified. I mean, underqualified. I mean, there are sometimes you're not the right fit for a company. So when you go into a company, you're not just interviewing for that job, but are you qualified or are you overqualified? A lot of times we think, oh, I'm not going to get this job because I don't have the skills, but you might be overqualified. You've moved up the rank. Maybe it's time to move, you know, forget the low expectations, the low energy, you've reached a point at your life. I mean, I do things at 20. I do things at 46. I don't do at 26. I look at myself at 26. I was a little girl. I mean, I'm an older woman. I've been through way more. I mean, life is really, I mean, it is what it is. Really, I don't even want to start there because if you heard some of the stories, you would be like shocked. Okay, how did I get home? I don't know. I remember talking to my ex-boyfriend in 1999. He said, how did you get home? I said, I really don't know. It was like a pure miracle. I mean, literally. And if I should tell you some stories, you all would really laugh. You would laugh. It wasn't funny at the time, I admit, but I should tell you stories that go on in downtown Pittsburgh. In fact, maybe I'll take it there. But I want to leave it here with, when we talk about the House of Pain, do you really want to stick around I've been around little kids. They get yelled at, and I got yelled at. So one of the things I talk to these little kids about, they identify with me because they get yelled at too. I said, well, I was grounded too when I was. I mean, but being grounded in your life is different than being grounded as a child. Being grounded means being centered and focused and like, okay, I gotta refocus here. That's a different story. But when we talk to kids about being corrected and disciplined, they have to understand that I'm trying to help them, and they're just gonna have to take my word for it. They might not like me in the respect that, but they have to take my word for it. I really am looking out for the best interest. So when I take away the iPad or the cell phone, it's not because I'm being mean. But there was a situation, it was like last year with my niece. You could not pry the iPad out of her hands. She did not want to let go. And what I find is we're so attached to being connected that we don't have time to be disconnected. I really encourage people, as much as everyone, this is a marketing thing on Facebook to stay connected. Sometimes you need to be disconnected, unplug, and like just decompress, press reset, and do your own thing. Now, for me, I do social media because I do this post. Do I want to be on Facebook all the time? No, but one of the downside of being on social media is that you're always there. It seems like your social presence is there. I would love to have a low profile right now. Love it. It just seems like when all the problems in my life are occurring at the same time, I end up having the biggest profile. I mean, I'm like out there like an open book, and that's not what you want. Facebook is like, they should just call it the open book policy. Some people have different names for Facebook. And I always look at Facebook as like, well, Facebook is like, if you want to suffer and crawl the walls, go on Facebook. Because sometimes you're not going to reach certain people. They'll unfriend you. They don't like you, but they don't know you. They don't take the time to get to know you. It's like a revolving door. That's why I look at Facebook. So one person's in, that has been the pattern there. It doesn't have to be that way, because I've had established good relationship. I don't even know how some of these people stuck around. I'm like, why did they even stick around? Why? I was going through the worst time of my life, and I don't know why they wanted to stay around. I'm like, I would be bolting out of the door too. And the truth is that not everybody wants to bolt out the door, but people have their lives and have to live it, and that's a whole nother story. I don't hold anybody back. I figured, you know what? If I were you, I'd be buying the next plane ticket out of here. So I would too. I have to stick around for this nonsense, but not for very long, because we're gonna carve a path. And listen, I discussed the house of pain because some of you live in a house of pain, and you've been raised in the roof in a house of pain. So I get it. And one of the things is getting in a strategy, an offensive strategy, to say, this is going to end. We're going to move forward here. And I'm going to put some links below, because I think it's going to save someone's life, actually. And that's the truth. And I was looking at the list of things, like, what are your goals? Like, okay, you go get a piece of paper, you write some goals down. You want to get a strategic plan for your life. Maybe it's just, monthly goals. Maybe it's a yearly goal, but whatever. For me, it's like every 3 months I have to do a budget. When I do a budget, I sit down and it's like, well, basically, I don't have any money coming in, so that means my budget's pretty much negative, pretty much. If you don't, now I have a radio show. It's a different story if my subscribers help me out and help me pay the bills. But I'm right now facing electric shutoff, and that's just the way it is. So, no, we don't do this for free, but I have to go get some advertisers today to help pay the bills here to keep this show going. And I really hope they do help me, because I'm facing a shutoff notice. But that's being said, the goals though, okay, if you write down some goals, you say, okay, I want to go to school. In my case, you might be living in your car, or you might be living in, well, I don't have a car, I have a truck. And you decide, okay, I'm going to move to a new area, fix the truck. Listen, I don't expect other people to fix my problems, but I'm in over my head, and I have a radio show, and I have to get advertisers. And I'll admit, this was the one area that I did not want to do. I realized that, you have to have sponsors and advertising. I really thought I could do this on my own, and now I have to think outside the box. So I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna get advertisers to support it, but maybe there will be some sucker out there that'll pay the bills. Okay. Anyway, you can't be that lucky. Okay, so when I talked about offensive strategy, and you want to have a guide, an action plan, and when I said that I will have a lot of this information below, it's because some of you have been hurting, and you just need to, you want something to change today, okay? And you have to start somewhere, and you got to start with yourself. And you're way beyond the point of finger pointing. You're way beyond trying to figure out why they do what they do. You're way beyond that point, because that's not really what it's about. It's about what are you doing to change it? Because it's time to stop being helpless. And one of the traps of being in a cycle of, and I don't know so much, some people term it cycle abuse. Maybe you're just in a bad pattern in your life. Because that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be abused to be in a bad pattern. That's another thing. A lot of people only identify with abuse, and that's not always the case. It could be as a result of problems at home that you might be in a bad pattern too. But you need to get food on the table. You need to get your house in order. And one of the things about getting the house in order is get out of the house of pain. So why don't you lock up the house of pain and go move into the house of order? A lot of people emphasize way too much on dysfunction, and you need to start functioning and focusing on goals like how are we going to get home and back and forth to work if you need to get bus pass. Here in this area, a lot of people rely on public transportation. I have nothing wrong with that. I have a big truck. I'd rather take the bus anyway. The way people drive in Pittsburgh being number one for the worst traffic, I mean, I would probably want to just take Port Authority anyway. But, you look at some things that you want to do with your life, and a lot of you have been stuck there for a while, and being unemployed and stuck is not exactly fun. And anyone that wants to trade places, good luck. That's why I don't like to criticize people. If you're stuck, you're stuck. It's time to get unstuck. So I'm about solutions here. So some of the challenges that you might have is that you realize that some of your relationships in your life require very low investment. That's okay. But if you want to exceed in areas of your life, you're going to want to have some challenges. And you might not know what those challenges are, but you're going to have to identify by writing this stuff down. You really have to understand, what are you investing your time in? Are you investing your time in, like in my case, I'm investing my time in a radio. Because I realized that maybe eventually I'll make a living doing this, but I don't know. I mean, I'm still waiting for the big payday. That's true. And that's not really why I do it though, okay? But you want to be in an environment where you can clean up your life, and you want to be able to focus in it. And when you have those kind of things like holding you back, you're not really going to get anywhere. You want to be happy, and you want to live a different way of life, You want to focus on your recovery goals, health goals, and a lot of times people have fitness plan. Those are things that matter to all of us. And you don't want to be around people that are going to sabotage your success and, deprive you of the basic things, because everyone needs those basic things, And a lot of people who have come from situations where, you lived in a home or a family that they weren't exactly respecting where you were at in your life. And I don't always know why. We all need a roof over our head. We all need the basic rights. We all have the basic right to live, and that's why I look at the personal Bill of Rights. So you're looking for your freedom and independence. You need a personal Bill of Rights. There are things that you can only identify in your personal Bill of Rights, and I would recommend getting a legal pad, because you are at the court of public opinion, and try to find out things that you like and don't like. Find out who you are again. Somehow in all this, a lot of people lose their way, not on purpose, they just do, okay? And I always look at it this way: the best way to become less helpless, or get, unravel the cycle of learned helplessness, is unlearn it, unlearn the bad patterns, identify, move forward. If you can't get therapy or to counseling, find a recovery group. There's 12-step groups, support groups. I love those groups. My dad was in recovery for years, and I still like going. I like listening to all the insight, So anyway, these are things I look at when I'm looking at my life, and I'm thinking to myself, I really want this to change. So instead of blaming others and, worrying about labels and things like, you want to feel good about yourself. And people don't have to be the bad guy for you to feel bad. You could be feeling bad just because, you're just in a bad routine in your life. You don't need other people to make you feel bad, though, because you might be feeling so bad that, man, I mean, you're pointing out so many of the positives in my life. Some people might be depressed just listening to some of the advice you get. And I would be very careful where you get your advice and how much you listen to other people. At the end of the day, you have to be able to evaluate the advice you're given and just cordially say, I appreciate your advice and I'll consider it. This way, you're not a victim of life. I mean, a lot of us nod at things. Just because someone perceives you as depressed doesn't mean you're depressed. Perception is reality, though. They believe one way and you believe differently. That's called not always agreeing. I would not want to be in agreement with somebody that I do not see them as positive people for me. So I'm probably not going to listen to what they said. I'm going to listen to people that place me with high value and invest a little bit more into my life, on a regular basis. When I don't talk to these people days at a time or weeks at a time, I realize their investment into my life and my investment into life, whether it's a higher investment, they're obviously investing very little into my life. So you're going to have to find out who are the people who have invested the most into your life. And, you listen to those people if you have to. But I would be careful, even with people that have your best interest in mind. You can be selective on the advice you accept, okay? You have to decide. You have to be selective, We were talking about something on my Facebook page, of all things, about selective outrage, listening to Linda Censor. It's okay for her to identify herself as a victim. But in all reality, when you live in a community and you're not willing to work with others, you've already shown me that you want to be defiant, okay? You're not willing to work with others. You don't want to cooperate with them. Where are we going to go here? That it's like it doesn't go anywhere. So this is about somebody's going to get their way, and and somebody's going to either have to compromise, and they're not going to compromise. And I look at people like this; they don't want to work together. It's like they have to be rebellious. And what do you do with that? I'm like, hey, you know what? Good for you. Have a great life. I mean, what do you do with this? I mean, did your parents not raise you right? Do you have to rebel? Everything is. I mean, what's your issue here? So when people are like acting out in rebellion, there's something going on in their life. There's nothing you can do. You have to let them go. But in the case of like what we're seeing out there in social media, is that a lot of people, you're getting under each other's skin. You need to just take, part ways. Like I said earlier, some relationships, it's like a revolving door. I mean, you don't know when the revolving door stops. You have to say, okay, listen, back to where we started. I have to put an end to this. I cannot live like this anymore. I want my life to go a certain way. I moved out of the house of pain, and I'm going back to the house of healing. Well, we call it Erica's house, but, we want to heal, and we want to grow, and we want to improve our lives. We don't want to stay there. Some of us have put up and sacrificed a lot to get where we're at, and some of us, it took a lot. Some of us had to fall flat on our face to get where we're at. And I don't know about you, but I don't know if you know what it's like to live in a neighborhood that you're poor and hungry and you're struggling, or maybe you're poor and hungry and you live in a good neighborhood. Who knows where you're at? Maybe you're poor and hungry, period. Doesn't have anything to do with where you live either. You could be poor and hungry and stuck in the best neighborhood, and you could be poor, hungry, and stuck if you're in the worst neighborhood. I mean, it's true. I think a lot of people think, well, wow, they have such a big house. Yeah, but they're also in debt to their ears, okay? And the way I grew up and the way a lot of people grow up is there was a difference. There's old money where you actually owned your things, and then new money where the bank owns your things, okay? And that's the world we really live in. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't listen to that advice. Like, you're not supposed to go into debt into your ears, but if you want something bad enough, you're willing to be a slave to debt, that's a different story. You have to decide at what point are you going to draw the line? And maybe it's too late. Maybe you're a sucker. You're in over your head. You got to just make the best of the situation. I would say a lot of these situations obviously are crippling, and a lot of people are in relationships or live in a home where they're crippled by their problems, and that's where we're going to leave off here, because I know that we're going to have to touch on this, but you don't have to stay there stuck, and you have to start somewhere. I would get a legal pad and get an action plan. Maybe there are things you can do. Maybe this person's not going to be reasonable with you right now, but you're going to have to find a way to either accept the way things are, and the only way you're going to change it is by accepting it. You might not be able to change the people, you might not be able to change the circumstances, but at least you can start here with a legal pad and start with 1, 2, and 3, or go to a 12-step meeting. Some people would look to that. I look at it this way. Sometimes I think our problems, what they do is they cloud our judgment. We might have all these resources, but we might resist it. Maybe we're in a place of our life where we're kind of pushing these things away. But when you get healthy enough, you might be willing to accept it. But right now, you might not be ready. And I think there are people that they've been there for a long time. They gave up, and they don't want to hear any advice. So just be careful how many people volunteer advice. I know a lot of people, they give out a lot of advice. That's great. But just be careful. Some people are just not ready for it, But we're going to leave it here, because there are a lot of things you can do. And you don't have to stay there unhappy, miserable. I know for a lot of you, it's nice to get away from some of the problems and start over. And this being an opportunity to start over, you have a chance every day, either pick up where you left off or start over. Or maybe just keep going where you're going. But you don't want to stay unhappy and miserable. It's about making peace with the past, moving on. There might be nothing you can do, but you have to move on, okay? And I recommend you having a legal pad every time you come to the Court of Public Opinion, because you might need to take notes. I know I'm going to start taking notes myself before I get in here, but these are just resources, and I'll put the resources and links below for some of you. It literally will save your life. I really think it's a game changer. Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion.
I look in your eyes and I can see you've loved so dangerously. You're not trusting your heart to anyone. You tell me you're gonna play it smart.